I wanted to share my story so others can understand that these scammers try to manipulate you to the max. I've been single for a number of years, and while I've tried online dating and met a couple of nice guys in person, it never came to be more than anything but a friendship. And I've been on a few dating sites. I was on Tinder, Plenty of Fish, and Match. But I met Max Washington on Facebook. He replied to a comment I made on a political page I follow, and he said he couldn't help but notice my beautiful profile picture. He asked if I could send him a friend request, as it would be rude for him to send me one. And at the time I thought it was him being a gentleman, so I sent him a friend request and we started chatting right away. He said he was 54 years old and a widow. He said his wife had kidney disease and she passed away 10 years ago. His son at the time when she passed was only 4 years old, so he had raised his son from a child as a single father. He asked me if I was married, and I told him no. I'd been divorced for many years, and I got married at a young age, and my husband was quite abusive to me, so our marriage ended after a few years. He said he was sorry that I was treated unwell and hopes that he could be the new man in my life and show me that not all men are bad. We chatted for a while on Facebook Messenger. He told me he worked as an oil rig crude oil engineer contractor. He said he often had contracts all over the world, and that he had to travel to places like Malaysia, Thailand, and different countries in Africa. He said he was waiting to find out about a new contract which would take him to Ghana. I know a little about Ghana, and I know they have a lot of gold there, but he said there was a big oil industry there. And I'm always interested in other countries, so I thought it would be really neat when he went on his contract trip to follow along and see what it was like there. I told him to send me tons of pictures if he got the contract. When I asked him, where does his child go when he's not there? He said he has a special nanny minder. And I kind of laughed at that, and I said, a nanny? By this time his son was going to be 15, and he said yes, but he still wanted a nanny with his son just to keep him in line. And that his son went to a private school, and that he had to make sure that his son continued with his studies because his schooling was so expensive. I never had any children, so I thought it was kind of weird that his son, who's nearly an adult, almost grown, was really raising some red flags. And I was kind of glad his child wasn't little. I wasn't into the idea of raising someone else's children. And I kind of thought it was neat that his son was almost grown. I really didn't want to be the mother to a young child. We would talk all the time, and after a few days he surprisingly asked me if I would be willing to move on to WhatsApp. He got his contract, and with all the travel international that he had to do, he didn't have time to log into Facebook to chat. He said WhatsApp is where he used to communicate with people from all over the world, especially during business. I agreed and downloaded WhatsApp. I've never used it before, but I've heard of it. I know a lot of younger people use this app. My neighbor's teenage son is always on WhatsApp. When I logged on and found him, his WhatsApp profile picture ended up being my photo, which I thought was very cute. He put some hearts around it and said, "My love," underneath. We started talking more and more on WhatsApp. He said one night that he would call me when he was out of the office. And sure enough, one night he did call me. He had a bit of an accent. He told me that his father was from Romania and he had grown up in Romania, and after his father passed away, he came to the United States to live with his uncle. He told me he lived in the Carolinas. If he lived in North and South, I asked him which one did he live in. He just said, yeah, the Carolinas, which I thought was a little odd. Most people will say I live in North or I live in the South. But I took him for his word. I didn't have really suspicion. We were just kind of getting to know each other more. He told me that he hoped he would meet the woman of his dreams, so he could get married and settle down. That's all he ever wanted. We continued with our conversation, and he would often call me, and I said he had a little bit of an accent. But I just assumed it was Romanian, and I've never talked to anyone from Romania before, so I really didn't know any better. He told me that he loved talking to me, and he felt the connection. He said he was, quote, catching feelings for me. And I have to admit, he was quite charming. Hearts and flowers through Messenger. And he sent me links to some YouTube romantic songs. I can't remember the last time a man sent me a romantic song or even anything romantic. It was so nice to have attention. But he would ask me things like if I'd eaten, what I had for dinner. He asked how I was feeling. And he would tell me to have sweet dreams and always wish me a good morning beautiful. I got a text from him all the time. He said he told his son about me, which I was a little taken back by that. We'd only been chatting for a short while, and I said that his son was very happy to hear that his dad was feeling so happy. I was still taken back by that because he wanted me to start emailing his son. I told him I don't feel comfortable doing that. Not until we at least meet and get to know each other better. I didn't feel comfortable emailing a minor, especially a son. He kind of understood, but he still gave me his son's email address and asked him to at least write and say hi to his son. Maybe once a week say hello, as he'd be working on a contract and unable to stay in touch with him as much as he'd like. He finally left for his contract, and he said it would be an 18-hour flight to Ghana. Again, he said he lived in the Carolina during the time, and the days went on, and we got less contact through WhatsApp Messenger from him, until he got settled in his hotel in Ghana. He did ask me to send an email to his son, so I finally agreed, only because he said he couldn't get a hold of his son, and he was worried and figured I might be able to get in touch, and he said his son's name was Jordan. I sent an email to him, and a few hours later I received a reply from Jordan stating that he was so glad to finally meet me, and that he was worried about his father because he hadn't heard from him. I told him that his father was trying to get a hold of him, and that his father said to send a message via WhatsApp to Jordan, but maybe it didn't go through. Jordan said it's probably because his phone is old. Jordan said he had an iPhone 5 and that it doesn't have a good connection, and all the other kids in school have a nicer phone. I told him, well, his dad needs to buy him an updated phone, and they need to stay in touch. I then discussed this with Max, and I told him, as soon as you get home, you need to get your son a good phone so they can stay in touch better. However, Max said being in Ghana, he wouldn't be able to get him a phone now, and he was concerned that he couldn't stay in touch. I was a little concerned as I wanted them to be able to stay in touch, and that's when Max asked me if I would be willing to add him to my phone plan. He asked me what kind I had, and I told him T-Mobile. I didn't really feel comfortable doing this, and I felt bad though. They needed to stay in touch, and he said he was very worried about his son because his son has always missed his mother and sometimes would act up, and he would get worried about him when he's not home to keep an eye on him. I took a couple days and I finally agreed to add his son to my phone plan. Max told me that he would pay the bill, and he asked me for my login and password and how I pay my T-Mobile bill. I stupidly gave him my login information and password, and I didn't think much of it and thought maybe he would pay the bill, and he said he was going to get his son a new phone. He told me not to worry about it, and he wanted to continue to take care of me. He said everything would be fine, and he said he loved me. He would call me day and night. I would talk to him on my breaks and at lunch. When I was home cooking dinner, he would always ask if I've eaten, and over time, he asked for my address. But I know he probably had it as he was in my T-Mobile account. But I gave it to him anyways, and deliveries of food, gifts, flowers, and all sorts of neat stuff from this man I'd never met, and we had planned to meet after he gets back from his contract. He said his contract would end in about 6 weeks, provided everything went well. Max would always ask me if I've eaten, and quite often he would send pizzas and food deliveries to my house. I finally joked with him and told him he needs to stop. I'm going to gain so much weight from eating all his fast food deliveries that he was having sent to my house. I knew he cared, but it was a little excessive. One night he sent me over $200 worth of food. Enough food. It's enough to feed a family of 6. I lived alone. I ended up sharing with my coworkers the next day. My one coworker told her about Max, and she was happy for me, but she was a little concerned. She asked me if I'd video chatted with him, if I've ever met him in person. Who is he? I told her no, And I asked Max to video chat several times on WhatsApp, and he said he was unable to due to his work and being overseas. He said over there they charge by the minute for internet, and it would be too much to video chat with the data on his phone system, and he had to save that to try and keep in touch with his son. I believed him because I know over there places sometimes in Africa don't have great phone systems or internet. I thought I was educated on Ghana, but come to find out Ghana has very good internet infrastructure as well as a phone system. My coworker was still concerned, but she was happy for Max and I. We continued our relationship, and he said he wanted to marry me when he got back. He said he's never been so sure and so in love in his life, and I cried. Honestly, I never felt so much love from a man in my life. I've dated a few duds. It got towards the end of the month, and I ended up getting my T-Mobile bill statement. When I got an alert saying I owe over $1,000, I about hit the roof. My phone bills are usually around $80, and I knew with adding his son, Jordan, that it would be another maybe $60 a month, and I budgeted for that. I didn't budget for all this extra. Come to find out, there was a brand new phone ordered on my account, and I wasn't sure what to do. I contacted Max, and he told me not to worry, honey, because he would be paying the bill. And sure enough, a few days later, I received confirmation that the bill had been paid. So I had no reason not to trust him. He paid the bill and took care of everything like he said. He even changed my billing address and information to his address. The billing address went to a home in North Carolina. He said he would take care of it all and not to worry. He'll pay all of my bills going forward. He had enough money to care for both of us. I felt cared for, and he asked for my login information for my cable bill, for Netflix, Amazon, and all my credit card bills. He said, I want to pay. I want to take care of you, and I've never had a man take care of me. So I stupidly gave him all the passwords for all my active online accounts. The closer he was getting to getting ready to come home from Ghana, I was planning for him. He said it would just be an extra couple weeks, and he said he had to finish up some loose ends. I couldn't wait to meet him. He was going to fly home and then fly to meet. I received some phone calls and alerts on my account, and a couple of my credit card payments had not gone through. They said the bank account that was used to make the payments had insufficient funds. The same happened to my T-Mobile account. They said the bank account was used with insufficient funds, and it took a while to catch up. Whatever account was used to pay my bills was invalid. I tried to get a hold of Max because I was alarmed. I had thousands of dollars on my T-Mobile bill that I also wasn't aware of. I also had thousands of dollars in charges on some of my credit cards that I had given him access to the account so that he could, quote, pay my bills for me. I don't know what to do. I tried to log into my Amazon account as well, and I'd been locked out. In fact, I'd been locked out of a lot of my accounts, and the password had been changed as well as the information. I panicked and called all the credit card companies. I had charges I wasn't aware of, and some of them were already on my credit report. I didn't even know this was happening. When I tried to get a hold of Max on WhatsApp, I can't get through to him. I don't know if he blocked me or what, but I no longer saw him on there responding to any of my messages. When I sent them, they all went unread. I tried to email his son Jordan to ask if he'd heard from his dad. I got radio silence. I tried to look for his profile on Facebook, and it had been removed or he blocked me. I didn't know what to do or think. I finally ended up calling every credit card company that had given him access to, and come to find out after pulling my credit report, I have things open in my name that I wasn't even aware of. I ended up trying to file a credit card and fraud report alert. The only thing I could think of was that Max took advantage of me. I went online for some help, and come to find out who I thought was Max Washington was a stolen photo of a man named Stuart James, who apparently is a married man with children, and his photos are used a lot in online love scams. I felt scared. I didn't know what to do. I kept trying to get a hold of Max as well as the son, and I heard nothing. I ended up having a hard time closing out all my credit card accounts. They wouldn't let me file fraud charges on some of them because I had openly given Max my password as well as access to my accounts. They told me that since I gave my information to him, that I was responsible. I had been open and honest and told him yes, I gave him the password, that he was my online boyfriend. But then I found out he was a scammer. And they said there's nothing they could do, and I ended up having to file for bankruptcy because thousands of dollars in debt and my T-Mobile account was also shut off. My accounts went to collections. The scammer ruined my credit and ruined my life. I know because of my own stupidity it cost me. But keep in mind, when you're talking to someone online and you fall in love and you think they're legit, you don't think with your head, you think with your heart. And I'm here to tell people, don't think with your heart, think with your head. I'm still working out my debts. I had to file a bankruptcy where I'm making payments back for all that I owe. Thank you for letting me share my story. Since this happened, I've been getting friend requests from all sorts of random men, fake profiles, including real profiles of young men who, quote, just want to be my friend. It's a hard lesson learned. It's an expensive lesson, and I wanted to share my story so others can understand that these scammers will manipulate you to the max. We'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. If you'd like to share your encounter with an online scammer, whether it be one where you lost money or one where you just found out he was a scammer and blocked him, you can find us on Facebook under the page Scamming Scammers Action, or send us an email, scammingscammers@gmail.com. Please give us time to verify your story, and we will narrate it into a video. You can remain anonymous. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.